1,000 years ago, a group of people left Earth to form the League of Free Worlds. One of the planets they colonized was XD59, a world covered in impenetrable swamps. Despite the difficult terrain, humans built a city there, controlled by a strict system that isolates its inhabitants from the outside world. The system monitors all activity, controls personal interactions, and even assigns people their jobs and spouses. Christie despised her assigned job and husband, ultimately fleeing both. She was quickly captured and sent to a special prison, where she and 8 other prisoners were made to stand against a wall for a scan. The system collected all their personal data, which was then sent to the central computers for the president's review. The president decided who would be arrested and for what offenses. While the prisoners were being scanned, a 10th prisoner arrived, his head covered. The captain expressed his desire to shoot them all but explained that the law forbade it. Instead, the prisoners were given a chance. If they could survive the treacherous swamp and travel 300 kilometers east, they might reach the Islands of Happiness, a place said to grant redemption. However, Christie had never heard of anyone actually reaching it, as the swamp was filled with deadly creatures. As the prisoners were taken outside, the man with the bag began walking but soon revealed that the electrified fence was still active. He suspected they were trying to kill him and make it look like an accident. The captain, confirming his exile, removed the bag, allowing the man to see again. The guards dropped off a box of supplies, warning the prisoners to leave within an hour or face being shot. The captain reactivated the fence and left with his guards. Maria, panicked, tried to run into the fence, but Christie stopped her. Irvin suggested they introduce themselves, and they learned that I had already served time and knew the swamps well. The conversation was interrupted when a monstrous creature, known as Saw Wordart, emerged from the ground. It could sense vibrations and attack accordingly. Irvin opened the box, but chaos ensued as the prisoners fought over the supplies. Irvin only grabbed a knife and told Christie to discard what she had taken, claiming she wouldn't need it. The moment was tense when I abruptly closed the box, declaring that none of them would survive the swamp. Irvin, however, and Christie were determined to find the Islands of Happiness despite Wee's disbelief. Irvin then demanded their share of the supplies, but I refused. In retaliation, Irvin threatened to kill Y, knowing this would lead to their immediate execution. Eventually, I relented and gave them their portion. But surprisingly, I also demanded the box in exchange for all his food. Irvin agreed, and Y's group packed their supplies into the bags and prepared to leave. Christie wanted Maria to join them, but Irvin refused, deeming Maria too unstable to survive. He was certain she would only slow them down and insisted that it would be Y's problem if she perished. Irvin explained that a 2-person team was the best strategy for survival, something he had evidently planned for. Christie, realizing his calculated approach, dubbed him the Calculator. Irvin had Christie walk ahead, as her lighter weight would help avoid getting stuck in the swamp's deep areas. He dragged the box along with a rope tied to his body. Hours later, the pair encountered Illa, who wanted to join them and offered to share her supplies. Irvin was considering this when gunshots rang out and both he and Christie hid behind rocks. The shooting stopped when it became clear that the shooter had aimed at Irvin. He told Illa to leave, suspecting she had caused the attack. Furious, Illa ran back to her group. Christie and Irvin continued their journey, moving low to the ground with the box behind them as protection. Christie noticed strange creatures on top of the box, but Irvin reassured her that they were harmless. Once they crossed the magnetic ridge, Irvin stood up, explaining that guns were useless there. He hid behind rocks to observe the other group and confirmed they had been following their trail. He also realized that one of the prisoners was missing. Soon, a light signaled that the facility's cannon had been fired, indicating that the missing man had stayed behind and been killed. Christie questioned if the Islands of Happiness were real, and Irvin suggested that the captain's near attempt on his life proved they were. If survival had truly been impossible, it wouldn't have bothered trying to kill him. Irvin kept claiming he knew the swamps, though Christie found it odd since he'd never actually been there. Meanwhile, back at the facility, the captain spoke with the president, who was enraged by their failure to kill Irvin. It was revealed that the shooter had been Matthias, a guard working undercover, and that the cannon's blast had been staged to deceive the prisoners. Later, as Christie and Irvin stopped to rest and hydrate, an electrified tentacle suddenly emerged from the ground, nearly attacking Christie. Irvin leaped onto it with his cloak to stop it, but the tentacle fought back, wrapping around him and slashing his chest. Following Irvin's instructions, Christie used the knife to cut the tentacle, causing the creature to retract. Irvin decided to keep the severed tentacle as a weapon. Christie cleaned Irvin's wound, admitting that her crime was murder. She tried to get a divorce, but when the government worker tried to assault her, she acted in self-defense. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Loy's group. When I tried to steal the box, Irvin used the tentacle as a whip to keep him at bay. Loy's group reluctantly backed off, and Irvin and Christie continued on. Several hours later, Irvin noticed Louis' group was still trailing them. Christie wondered why they were still following if I didn't believe in the islands. Irvin speculated that they were heading toward the Rotten Shah, a former prison for social outcasts. Suddenly, Irvin noticed a sawword art emerging from the ground and told Christie to lie still and silent. The other group kept moving, and the creature, sensing their vibrations, began extending its branches. I finally ordered everyone to freeze, but it was too late. A sawword art erupted from the ground and began swinging its body in attack. Most prisoners managed to dodge, but Maria and Chob were caught by the branches. Chob immediately used his knife to cut them free, but the creature regenerated and created a massive structure in front of them. They urged everyone to remain still, but Kay, terrified, ran. A branch ensnared his ankle and held him in place as the main body descended, capturing him and pulling him underground. As the other branches retreated, Christie criticized Irvin for not warning the others, but he reminded her that survival was their only goal and forced her to keep moving. Back at the facility, the president told his officers to capture Irvin and bring him in, threatening to imprison them if they failed. Later, while resting, Christie heard strange noises and turned to find a terrifying sight: a massive swarm of small creatures moving toward them at high speed. She attempted to run, but Irvin stopped her, pulling her back just as one of the creatures nearly attacked. Irvin destroyed it with a tentacle and pulled Christie into the box for shelter. The creatures arrived and stomped all over the box, shaking it violently, but it held up and kept them safe. Once the creatures moved on, the duo emerged and continued without the box. Soon they reached the true swamps, using poles to test the ground before stepping to avoid sinking. Meanwhile, Louis' group reached the area as well, with Maria struggling to keep up. I'd ordered a break, but Leela protested, saying they would lose Irvin's trail. Furious, Leela cut a rope and tried to leave, prompting I to chase after her. However, he wasn't paying attention and fell into a swamp hole. Leela laughed at him as he begged for help, and though Chob considered rescuing him, Leela stopped him. Christie explains that Irvin used to be an advisor to the president and possesses crucial knowledge about the area, making him their best guide. The majority of the group agrees and follows Irvin, leaving Lai behind to help pull Yest out of the hole. Later that evening, Irvin catches bugs and eats them raw, telling Christie to do the same if she wants to survive. Despite finding the taste repulsive, Christie complies. Irvin warns that boiling them would make them even more unpleasant. As they rest, Irvin reveals why he was imprisoned. He had been an advisor for the president, but got caught trying to leak evidence of the government's corruption. Eventually, Irvin surrendered, hoping to be exiled, knowing that the system couldn't function without him and disappearing would be the best way to dismantle it. Meanwhile, the captain at the facility realizes the system is malfunctioning, with communication satellites failing. However, no one can fix it because Irvin is the only one who knows the access code. Later, Christie and Irvin encounter two prisoners who have survived by becoming cannibals. They immediately attack the group and capture Maria while the others flee. Christie hears Maria's screams and wants to return to help, but Irvin stops her, explaining the danger. Eventually, Maria is killed and Christie, in grief, wonders who could devise such a horrifying punishment. Irvin admits it was his idea. Christie, furious, accuses him of being a monster, but Irvin counters that the law was never protested by the general public, meaning society as a whole is just as complicit. In a fit of guilt, Irvin tries to end his life by drawing the attention of a creature, but nothing comes. He realizes that even the monsters don't want him, so he reluctantly agrees to continue guiding Christie. Christie admits that the captain had offered her freedom if she killed Irvin, but she refused. Meanwhile, Yest and Yan find the group and prepare for revenge. Yest grabs Leela by the neck, and she reveals that the captain offered her freedom if she killed Irvin. To confirm her story, Valentine scans her body and finds a tracker on her ankle. Yest orders it to be cut off, but Leela tries to flee and falls, discovering a web-like creature grabbing her. More strands emerge and cocoon her, suffocating her to death. Yest takes control of the group and leads them away, while the tracker sends a signal to the captain, who is pleased to learn of Leela's death and sends Matthias to retrieve his special weapon. Back with Irvin and Christie, Yan approaches, claiming he's abandoned his group. Irvin doesn't trust him and is proven right when Yan knocks him out. When Irvin regains consciousness, he and Christie are captured by 3 remaining prisoners. Yest reveals they are near the entrance to the Rotten Shah, but they need a plan to avoid an ambush. Irvin suggests Christie leave without him, but she refuses and kisses him. Yest then carries Irvin on his shoulders, hoping to make a deal with an officer in the Rotten Shah. In the Rotten Shah, Matthias and 2 officers arrive and interrogate a prisoner who insists no new arrivals have come. Suddenly, a crossbow is shot from the darkness, killing 1 officer. Matthias and the other guard return fire, killing several prisoners. Outside, Chob is alone when he's surrounded by sawword art branches. An officer comes to investigate but is captured by the creature, his gun firing randomly and wounding Chob. Meanwhile, Yest and Irvin enter the Rotten Shah through a secret tunnel. Yes hides Irvin and meets Matthias, who agrees to a deal and gives him a gun as a guarantee. However, when Yes goes to show Irvin, he finds Irvin is already gone. Matthias uses his scanner to track Irvin's location but keeps it to himself. As Yes moves forward, Matthias prepares to shoot him, but Yes hears him and shoots first, realizing the gun is empty. Matthias then attempts to find Irvin behind a curtain, but instead discovers Jan and Christy. After killing Jan, Matthias captures Christy and threatens to kill her if Irvin doesn't surrender. At that moment, Chob sneaks in with the guard's gun and meets up with Irvin to devise a plan. They emerge from hiding and Irvin agrees to surrender in exchange for Christy's freedom. Matthias releases her, but before Chob can shoot Irvin, Yes appears and stabs Matthias in the head. As Matthias dies, he accidentally fires his gun, hitting Christy with a sedative instead of a lethal bullet. Afterward, Irvin thanks Yes, who is in pain. Yes asks for the poison capsule and Irvin hands it to him, allowing him to die peacefully. Sometime later, Christy, Irvin, and Chob reach the shore and spot small islands on the sea. Chob thinks their journey is over, but Irvin notices that the islands are moving. They aren't real islands, but rather pieces of the swamp carpet capable of supporting their weight. The trio selects one of the islands and using poles, they push it away from the shore, hoping it will carry them to freedom. Back at the facility, the president scolds the captain for his failure as the systems begin shutting down. The captain sends another officer after Irvin, hoping there's still a chance to catch him. Meanwhile, Chob discovers that his wound won't stop bleeding and realizes he's running out of time. Not wanting to wait, he jumps into the sea, bidding farewell to the others before being dragged underwater by a creature. Hours later, the duo is found by an officer in an aircraft, but it's too late. The system fails again, and the aircraft crashes into the ocean, sinking quickly. Christy and Irvin realize that Irvin's plan has worked and the government system is collapsing. They celebrate their success, but their happiness is short-lived when they notice a waterfall ahead. Using Irvin's scientific knowledge, they make a cocoon out of the island and hold their breath as the water throws them downward. After a while, the waves drop them on a new shore, which appears to be empty. Irvin knows there's a hidden military facility nearby, but doesn't know the last digit of the password because the president changed it. With only 2 tries left, Irvin calculates the possibilities on the sand, but Christy reminds him to focus on the last thing the president said before entering the code. Following her advice, Irvin first enters the wrong code on purpose to check if the system is working, then enters the correct code using the last number the president had mentioned. The entrance opens on the mountain. The duo enters and discovers an aircraft ready to leave the planet. Irvin tells Christy to leave without him as there is only 1 seat. But Christy insists on staying with him because she loves him, and they share a kiss. Minutes later, the couple is flying the aircraft together, sharing the single seat. They eventually reach another planet in the League of Free Worlds, where the atrocities of the XD-59 system are exposed. Peacekeeping forces are sent to liberate the citizens, and in 10 years, a new system takes over, only to be worse than the last. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.